Hello, everyone. This is Kerwin, and welcome to another episode of What's Happening in Travel with Kushal and Kerwin. This is Kerwin. Kushal is not here today. So, I just got back literally a few hours ago from the Paris Airshow. Amazing show as usual. And behind me, my image today is the 777 -9, making its amazing turns at the Paris Airshow. So today's show is going to be recap of the Paris Airshow, pretty much. So I decided to take WestJet to head over because WestJet had a good fare from Houston to Calgary to Paris. So then I had a 7-hour layover, 8-hour layover in Calgary, and I just kind of went into the city and pretty much came back and kind of checked out the city, checked out the airport, so I could get some information for that. And then took the 737-800 going up, and then the 787 MAX over to Paris on WestJet. Both good flights. WestJet has kind of changed into being from a low-cost carrier to a full-service carrier. So it was kind of interesting to see that, and I had not flown them yet, so that worked out well. Paris Airshow. It's always Boeing versus Airbus at Paris Airshow. This year, Airbus won out, for want of a better term, because they so far have announced the most orders. And I'll give you a quick recap of how that went. So pretty much, let's see, they had the big winner from Airbus is, well, we'll start at the little ones. So in the airline business, there are leasing companies. There's a leasing company called Avolon, Avolon, and they actually bought quite a bit of planes at the show. Okay, so what Avolon did, they're based in Ireland, and they did an order for 20 Airbus A330-900, and delivery is going to start between 2026 and 2028. And but Avolon also signed an order for 40 737 MAX 8 on day 2 of the show. I should have probably done a tally. Let's see what else they did. That's about it that Avolon did actually at the show itself. Now, the big thing of the show is that, sorry, I'm just finding my notes here, is that Indigo, which is a low-cost carrier in India, ordered 500 Airbus airplanes. So it's weird when you have all your notes and then you start the show and the notes disappear. So just bear with me 1 sec until I find the notes again. So weird. Okay, Oh, this is really, really weird. Okay, here we go. So Indigo, which is the low-cost carrier in India, they ordered 500 A320 from Airbus. That's like pretty major. So that was the huge news of the show. And I think they also have like 800 there. I think in all, Airbus got like 830 A320s for the orders at the show when you add up all the other different orders that they had. So needless to say, Airbus did really, really well. Speaking of Airbus, they also launched the A350 freighter. It was actually quite good to see that that airplane. I haven't followed the A350 when it was first introduced at Paris a few years ago, and to see now that they have the freighter, they're expecting, I think 2025 is when they're going to have the first one delivered. They didn't say who the customers are going to be just yet, but they have a nice mock-up. And if you're watching this, you can see I'm going to insert some videos and stuff of the mock-ups. So that's actually really, really, really good what they did there. So we're looking at the A350s freighter that's launched, the large order that they had. They also had JetBlue A321, A321neo, the long range one that was at the show. And it was kind of good to see that because I'd never seen the interiors of one of those as yet. And it has the Mint Studio and then the Mint seats. And then the legroom on that airplane is actually quite good. So kudos to JetBlue for doing that. I'm one of those naysayers that said that that wasn't going to work, but so far so good because they're launching Paris, I think, next week. And the airplane they had at the show was going back so they could prepare it and do their launch stuff for I think it's next week that they launched that. Airbus also had the A350-900. I think it was a 1000 from Qatar Airways that was there. And they flew that in from Qatar for the show, specifically for the show. Of course, they had a bunch of military things, but I'm not familiar with all the military items, but there was quite a bit of military. On the Boeing side, Boeing had a 737 MAX 10 that was there, and I had seen that in Farnborough last year. And that's still doing development, but this was not the same airplane as another one, but it's still a test airplane. And then they have, of course, the 777-9, which they flew and did some amazing demonstrations. But if we just want to look for Boeing, they had Akasa Air. They bought 8 Boeing 737 Max. So that's good. And let's see what else they have. Luxair also ordered some Maxes as well. They got they ordered the Max 7, which is the smaller of the Max, and they ordered 4 of those. And that's it for Boeing so far. One thing too that Boeing did, they bought Whisk Aero. Whisk is a company that's going to do autonomous electric airplanes, and eVTOL is the new thing that you're going to hear a lot about, which is where they want to create these autonomous electric vertical and takeoff and landing aircraft that can basically pick you up in your neighborhood and take you to the airport, or take you between Manhattan and Newark or JFK, probably even LaGuardia, etc. So that's the big thing that you'll see a lot of coming in. Nothing is certified yet. Everybody's still building. Biggest issue that everybody seems to have is battery life. And these things have like 6 propellers and 12 propellers and things like that. So that's a big issue that everybody has. On the Embraer side, Embraer showed off their E195 E2, and they had a chance to go into this airplane at Farnborough last year. It's really amazing inside. But Helvetic Airways, which is based in Zurich, flies them, and I was able to walk in and check that out. So make sure you come back to passvalley.com/WHIT episode, what are we, 102? And you'll be able to take a look at these airplanes, or just come to the homepage of the website, passvalley.com. You can get to see those. It's interesting to see the life of the electric airplanes and how they're evolving over time. Whisk had, I think it's their 6th generation now that they've had, and you can see it has changed quite a bit over time. So we talked about the Airbuses, the Boeings. Oh, Riyadh Air also had their 787-9, where it's basically it's just the exterior they were showing off, because the interior is probably another airline, but they were just showing off the exterior of the airplane at the show. And it's a pretty amazing. It's one of two livers. So later this year they're gonna do another one. They don't launch until 2025, but they're doing a whole teasing marketing. And it was very good to see. The CEO was there in their booth at the show. He seems to have a British accent, so I think he's probably British. And but watch out for Riyadh Air. They're going to be based in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, so watch out for those. Uh, I also had a chance to see the 747-100 that Air France used to fly, and it's so amazing to see how it's changed over time. And also at because the air shows at Le Bourget, and Le Bourget is where the museum air the Air and Space Museum of France is located. And so they had the old 747-100, plus they also had the Air France, the original Air France Concorde that they made initially. And then they had the first one that they flew. And so it's all in mock-up, and you can walk through and take a look at the seats and things like that in the cockpit. The cockpit is not very well lit. I don't know why they have it so dark. Um, but it's a tiny airplane. So if you ever go to Paris, you can always go to the museum whenever you go to Paris. Just go to Le Bourget, look up Museum of Air and Space in Le Bourget, and you can take the train to Le Bourget and take a bus from there out to the Le Bourget airport and check that out. That's really good to see. Oh, one of the things with 777-9 is it has foldable wings. Now, when the original 777 was designed, it had foldable wings, but because the idea was it needs the wing can give you more range, but the gate space was not enough to fit the wings. But the airlines didn't really buy it at the time. And now this 777-9 has it. So it's kind of cool to see it taxis out with the wings folded. And then as soon as it take off, the wings go flat. And then it goes. And as soon as it lands, the wings fold back again. So it's kind of cool to see that. That's about it about the show itself. So that was quite fun. Once the show was over, I was only there for 2 days. Then I quickly headed over to it was the longest day, and I headed over to Tallinn via Helsinki. I had not been to Tallinn before, and flew Nordic Regional Airline and E190 day fly from Paris to Helsinki, and then I flew ATR over to Tallinn. Speaking of ATRs, ATR has launched a cargo version of I think it's ATR 700. Now, the interesting thing with the ATR 72-700, I think it is that it's not that they took a ATR and made it into cargo. They actually made a new plane. At least that's what the lady was telling me. But it was very good to see the ATR come into life again. And so they're still used. I mean, the flight to Tallinn is on an ATR, probably going to be an ATR for a long time. 2-2 configuration typically. But it was a very good and rugged airplane for small field takeoffs and landing, and there's lots of places in the world that it can be used. So I did that to Tallinn, went to Tallinn. Then if you go to Tallinn, you can fly back to Helsinki, but I decided to take they have a ferry that goes over, and the ferry is amazing. It's basically a ship because to me there's no difference in a cruise ship, and because they have every facet of a cruise ship. It's a 2.5 hour ride over, and you can get different levels of service. There's a regular service, and there's comfort class, which gives you food, but it's just not hot food. And then there's business class, which give you hot food. You can buy a room if you want. It's kind of 2.5 hours, but if you want to celebrate something, you can get a room as you go, and have different classes of rooms as well. There's an outdoor garden. There are bars on board. There's food on board. There's gambling on board. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do. And of course, there's duty free, right? So it was actually a really good experience. Then spent a day in Tallinn. As actually another day, but an afternoon in Helsinki. Kind of walked around the town, went to the Helsinki church. It is lots of music, lots of stuff going on because it is the longest day of the year. And got back to my hotel at like I don't know, 9:30 or something like that, maybe 10 o'clock. And then the fun thing was the sun didn't go down to 10:45, but Helsinki's about the same latitude as Alaska. And just like Alaska, the sun sets at 10:45, but it doesn't really get dark. And so you wake up at like, I think I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:13 or 1:30, something like that. And it was kind of, it wasn't dark, but it wasn't light. So it was really interesting to see how it looked back then. But that was actually fun. And of course the sun came up at 3:45 this morning. And so I've been flying from that time pretty much till now, because the flight was at 6:20 and I got up at 4, I think it was, and then actually I got up at 3:45. So I'm a little tired, but that's all I have for this week. So I'm gonna insert some videos and stuff into the broadcast. So if you're listening, jump over to parisairshow.com/WHIT. You'll see the episode 1. It's probably going to be 102, I think it is. But you'll be able to, it's the most current episode. And check that out. Let me know what you think. I had a lot of fun at the show. Met a lot of great people. Saw that really good airplanes fly, and it always reminds me of how much tech goes into the airplane industry and just some of the little things that you don't even think about. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, low emissions and that kind of stuff. So that's a big thing. So the big things were sustainability, low emissions, EVTOL, which is electric vertical takeoffs and landings, and Boeing and Airbus still fighting at each other. Airbus had the A321XLR dual fly. A flight, Boeing had their 737-9, and the 737 MAX was the ones that they had flying, and Embraer had the E195 E2, which they call the Prophet Hunter. And there's a lot of military airplanes. Whenever the military airplanes fly, you just got to stick your finger in your ears or bring air things. But today was kind of weird because it rained a lot today. So if people who went to the show today didn't have a good time because it just rained. And when it rains at Le Bourget, it's muddy. But anyway, it was great. I had a good time. Thank you guys for listening as usual. And I think that's all I have. So have a good trip. Have a great flight. And we'll talk to you soon.